Hello, dear viewer. As the season warms back up and major tournaments slowly start to come back, I felt the inspiration to make this video. It's things TOs should clarify about their majors on the front page of their Smash GG, in addition to the already relevant info. When I was a little more actively attending tournaments, one of my favorite video series was made by Wizrobe. In that series, he would recap what it was like attending whatever tournament he just went to, and go over several factors that could affect that event. Some of them include food options, the hotel's distance from the venue, public transportation, setup accessibility, what time the venue opened, and things like that. These are all factors that might seem pretty small, but they really affect your tournament experience. Having to drive or walk 20 minutes to the venue from your nearest hotel, versus having the hotel actually in the venue itself, can seriously change your interpretation of that event and how much fun it actually is. Now, if you add something like bag checks, how long it takes to get your badge, how long it takes to prove you're vaccinated, all those things add time and they take away from things you really want to do at the tournament. So that's why I liked the video series so much, especially including different food options in the area, because if I go somewhere and all that's around me is fast food, including those things around a tournament really helps. And that's just a rough example. I would like to propose a definitive checklist of issues within the community tournaments should be clear on. Crystal clear. Specifically, these items should be viewable on the front page of Smash GG with other important information. These things shouldn't be announced way in advance, really close to the date, where people have already booked their flights, they've already planned their road trips, they already took PTO, all that stuff. It leads to mistrust in the community between tournament organizers, attendees, competitors. For too long now, we've seen more problems come up at major tournaments that we haven't really faced before. Since the community is so big now, there has to be a different approach to what we tell our attendees. Promising simply an amazing Smash tournament is not enough anymore. Many people in the community have a lot of trust in TOs due to how long they've been around, and we need to work together to maintain that trust. Now, asking a small group of unpaid volunteers and TOs to do everything perfectly is just too much to ask. I'm going to go through a list of issues I have seen and heard about at one or more major tournaments to provide a checklist of important topics we should encourage TOs to include as key points from the day they announce their event. The number one issue is probably played on CRT or monitor for Melee. If there will be speakers for the CRT, the adapters used for analog to HD conversion, and lag reduction codes being used through UCF. Playing on CRT or monitor is a really big issue in the community. There's a lot of people who have started playing through Slippy who don't understand why people like CRTs so much. The answer is just really simple. CRTs are a lot cheaper, you can usually find them in the dump, you can find them sitting on the side of the road, and most of the time, they are very reliable. Monitors are really expensive, especially lagless monitors that are going to be needed for things like Melee, because it takes a lot more time to set up those monitors and make sure that they're running laglessly, because in a game where every single input matters and being able to react at a fraction of a second is so important, having inconsistent hardware or not even being able to hear the TV affects everything. Especially if you're a top player, why would you want to go to a tournament that's not telling you if you're playing on CRTs or monitors? The first time I experienced this shell shock of going to a tournament and there being monitors was actually at Low Tier City 7. Those monitors were not lagless. There were some setups that were pretty playable and fine, and there's a lot of technicalities behind this that others can go into more detail than I can, but there were definitely half of a room of monitor setups that were not reliable, and none of them had speakers plugged in. You could not hear most of the TVs in the entire room. That is just ridiculous. So many people use audio cues in Melee, and being able to hear the game is such a big deal. So the fact they didn't prepare for this it looks really bad. It does, and it really hurt the enjoyment for a lot of people at that tournament. I had fun. I really liked going to Texas, but I did not like playing on monitors, and neither did a lot of other people. Another tournament that happened at was actually Big House. They had a bunch of monitor setups and a bunch of CRT setups, and they said that the CRT setups were going to be friendlies only, and that you needed to play on the monitor setups. So the reason this happened is because both these tournaments at the same time received sponsorships from one of the HD converter companies. I don't remember what it's called because I don't care about that stuff. They were approached and said, we want to sponsor your event, you gotta use our hardware, and we're gonna give you a bunch of money. Running a tournament is a loss. There is not money in it. People put their own money and their own personal funding into it all the time, and a lot of times they come out as a loss. So of course they're gonna want to take these sponsorships, but being 100% clear about it is way more important than luring people into your event, promising one thing, making sure like they expect one thing, and delivering something else that drastically changes the enjoyment of the event for a lot of people. Now the second thing that I want to talk about is make sure the version of Melee is very clear. This used to not really be a problem, but given that Smash World Tour was all vanilla Melee, this might not be super clear, and in order to be eligible as a Smash World Tour tournament, you have to use vanilla Melee. So making sure that your version of Melee is very clear is really important. If it's vanilla, you should include that. If it's Slippy, you should include that. If it's UCF toggle mode, Pittsburgh edition, whatever, you need to include that in your rule set and probably on the front page of your Smash GG. Third thing, really contentious issue in the community right now, legal controller modifications. There's button remapping now, there's various box and frame 1 expected standards with firmware and all that. There's Arduinos, people put Arduinos in their controller now. We need to have some pretty specific rules surrounding it, or we just need to allow all of it, because it seems like people are confused by wording, or they're under the impression that something is banned when it's actually not. Making sure that everyone knows what exactly is legal among those specific issues is really important. So the fourth issue, NSFW booths or hentai booths being present at tournaments. Whether you are for or against them, I don't really care, that's not what this video is about. There should really be rules about this, because Smash, Ultimate, and Melee were made for children. And I know the competitive scene is not really for very young kids. They still go to these tournaments and they're still watching all this content. They really want to go and meet their favorite top players. They want to be a part of the scene. If we don't have rules about this, going to an event and seeing those booths with like all these Smash characters, like all the waifu bait characters, basically like drawn in very sexual ways. They might not be fully nude, but you can look at that and be like, yeah, I don't think I'd want to show my grandma that. It's probably something that we should make a rule about. You should either, pretty easy solution, if you have NSFW art at your booth, you should put it in a binder and require checking someone's ID, because otherwise you could have all these minors around looking at your art and you're not really doing anything about it. It's a really weird situation. So if you know there's gonna be hentai booths, give clarity of some sort. Make the event 18 plus if you have to. Make people check IDs, because it really shouldn't be a problem. The fact that we have so many people who make jokes about it or are so comfortable expressing this interest when we've just had serious talks about all the predators and sexual abuse allegations in the community, it makes us look terrible to have not figured this out yet. And if you're worried about the artists need to make a living or something, there's anime conventions where that is just so accepted and people love it so much. I mean, they have those issues in their own communities too, but Smash Bros. Tournament or an anime convention, what do you want it to be? SmashCon was one of them, where there was a couple hentai booths, and like that's a more family-friendly advertised event, so it's really weird to not either say they're gonna be there, so keep that in mind, or show your ID to see the weirder stuff. We just need a rule set on it. It's kind of ridiculous that we don't. I don't care if you're for or against it. I don't go to a Smash tournament to look at hentai. So let's just put it out there. If you're running a tournament, put your rules on. The next issue that I want to talk about, bag checks and security checks. The worst bag check experience I had at a tournament was without a doubt at a Super Smash Con, where it was like this fake TSA style line of people going out the door. People were so aggressive, throwing around bags, like ripping through them. They weren't even like particularly strict with security at specific doors, so a lot of people would just walk in and out of doors where a security guard was literally sitting right there and did not care. But I remember going to the venue was like a full day, multi-hour commitment because I just didn't want to bring my bag out, because I didn't want to deal with people searching through it and throwing all my shit around. That sucks. And I know we have security measures like that at a lot more tournaments now. One that I didn't find that bad was Low Tier City. The bag checks at that were relatively fine. I mean, it was more invasive than like you want, obviously, like as just personally. It's more invasive than I want. They like stick a probe in your bag and make you take off your jacket, stuff like that. We didn't used to have that at tournaments before, but that's definitely an issue that has been really annoying at times, because you just get people who are so uppity about it. You're just checking my bag, dude, I'm at a tournament. I'm serious about this issue because it has been so annoying in some cases. A tournament that I went to recently, which was Riptide almost a year ago now. A couple months ago now, not a year. But they just wanted you to like open your bag and make sure you're not bringing anything in. And I'm not gonna go into the issue of like security theater and everything, because making people feel safer at an event is a good thing. And if we need them, they're there and we will have them. You know, there is no reason for these events to have bag checks that are so over the top, like a TSA at an airport. We don't need that. We're running a tournament. The last thing is really small. It's just types of food and beverages allowed in the venue. Like, maybe you don't want people bringing in their chili cheese fries into the venue and getting it all over the place and making a mess and having to clean up after a tournament, which can be a nightmare, by the way. But, like, maybe a granola bar is okay. Maybe fruit snacks or something. Maybe you're just allowed to bring bottled water and maybe not anything else. But if it's not allowed, you should have pretty clear details on where you can get those things in the venue itself, because it is so annoying to go all the way to a tournament. Sometimes you walk to the venue. I've walked to the venue pretty far distances just because I like walking. And having water that is cold and nice and crisp, and walking to a venue and having someone say you can't have that sucks so bad. Not having water in a venue where you're at a tournament for many hours just isn't fun. So either knowing where the bathrooms are to like find a water fountain, that's a good thing, or just giving people water. I know that Riptide did that. They had water pretty accessible to everyone at little water fountains with ice in it. It's great. You gotta make those things clear to people. These are all factors that might not seem that big a deal, but they really are. They have really impacted my view on specific majors for the last couple years. And as we go forward and bringing back majors, I really want people to be more clear about this, because it sucks to go to a tournament, expect one thing, and get another. The fact that I'm aware of all these issues and that they could be factors at the tournament and people might not be very upfront about them really sucks. Pound just changed their setups from monitors to CRTs because there was such an outrage on Twitter. People in the community have a certain expectation and trust in TOs, and it is really important that we maintain that and we don't just throw people around who are supporting the community. Anyway, I hope this was in-depth enough. I'm gonna put the checklist, the TLDR, right here, right now, because I imagine that watching this entire video of me going on and on can be a little bit grating. So here are the points again. Small recap. Played on CRT or monitor, and if it's played on monitor, will there be speakers and the adapters they're using from analog to HD, and if they're using lag reduction codes, what they are. Second one, version of Melee, vanilla, slippy, UCF. We don't want to have problems like that anymore. We want to know if we have Frozen Stadium or if we're going to get to see the rock transformation. Number 3, legal controller modifications. Can I use my box? Can I use my Frame 1? Can I use my Smash box? What are the standards of my controller? Am I allowed to remap buttons on my GameCube controller, on my Goomwave? Am I allowed to have Arduinos in my controller? I want to know those things. Number 4, hentai booths. We gotta say if they're allowed, if they're gonna be there. We need to tell the people. There should be rules about it. You should have to show your ID to see it, or we should just make the event 18+. 5 types of food and beverages allowed in the venue. If they're not allowed, you gotta tell us where to find them. We're hungry, thirsty people. And if bag checks and security checks will be performed at an event, what will they be like? And my friends, that is all for this video. I was very passionate about this topic. I hope I gave you some good insight, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.